Shalom, welcome to the Jewish View. My name is Rabbi Nachman Simon with the Chabad House of Delmar, and we're going to talk about this book from the excerpts from the Lubavitcher Rebbe, A Happy Home. And I know that Jews and non-Jews alike, the divorce rate is very high, surely too high, and therefore we want to bring people together and be married, number one, and number two, stay married and have a happy home without any strife. So this is called A Happy Home, Advice from the Lubavitcher Rebbe for Happiness in Marriage. And the foundations of the Jewish home, and here's a letter from the Lubavitcher Rebbe. A marriage is not only the beginning of a partnership, but the beginning of a union, where both partners become one and are united for life in order to set up an everlasting edifice, as mentioned in the text of the wedding blessings. Therefore, it is clear that everything should be done in order to assure the maximum degree of compliance with the will of God, the Creator and Master of the universe, and of man, the providence of whom extends to everyone individually. Right, so that's a good basis of our subject today, that we want to have God into our homes, and therefore we'll have a happy home. For decades, the Lubavitcher Rebbe, the head of Rabbi Schneerson, leader of the Lubavitch movement in New York and throughout the world, admitted Jews to see him in private audience. These private meetings occurred 2 or 3 times a week, starting at nightfall and many times ended at dawn. Sometimes people had to wait for months until the longed-for time arrived. Those who were fortunate to enter the Rebbe's private room to see him in person poured out their hearts before him and asked for blessings and advice. A certain teenage girl, due to misconceptions about the true meaning of love, failed to find a suitable marriage partner. For other reasons not connected to the subject, she asked for a private audience with the Rebbe. Later on, she revealed the Rebbe's words to her. The Rebbe asked at length about my courses, my professors, and my plans for the future. Then, to my great surprise, the Rebbe asked me about my very personal plans about marriage. I told him that I had met several young men, but I had not met someone I wanted to marry. The Rebbe smiled broadly and asked my opinion about a specific young man. I swallowed hard. I could not believe it, but the question concerned the young man I had recently met. The Rebbe then asked about another young man I had gone out with, and a third, and I was totally overwhelmed. The Rebbe apparently knew everything about my life, certainly this aspect. I just shook my head and blushingly explained why each one was not the right one for me. Then the Rebbe chuckled lightly and told me that I read too many books. How did he know? But he did know. Love, he explained to me, is not that which is portrayed in romantic novels. It isn't that overwhelming, blinding emotion that is portrayed in a romance. These books do not portray real life, he said. It is a fantasy world, a make-believe world with made-up emotions. Fiction is just that, fiction, but real life is different. And then, as a father to a daughter, he began to explain to me the meaning of real love. Love, he told me, is an emotion that increases in strength throughout life. It is sharing and caring and respecting one another. It is building a life together, a unit of family and home. The love that you feel as a young bride, he continued, is only the beginning of real love. It is through the small everyday acts of living together that love flourishes and grows. And so, he continued, the love you feel after 5 years or 10 years is a gradual strengthening of bonds. As two lives unite to form one with time, one reaches a point where each partner feels a part of the other, where each partner no longer can visualize life without his mate by his side. Smilingly, he told me to put aside my romantic notions, developed by my literary involvement, and view love and marriage in a meaningful way. I walked out of the Rebbe's office with a huge smile on my face. The Rebbe knew how to communicate with a dreamy young girl. He knew what to say and how to say it. His words spoken from the heart reverberated within my heart. From all over the world, rabbis, businessmen, and community leaders and politicians seek the advice of the Rebbe. Often this relates to issues of far-reaching significance and affects many people. Nevertheless, in the case of a young girl standing at the threshold of life, preparing to make the most crucial of decisions, he gave his undivided attention. With fatherly love and compassion, with patience and concern, he presented her with a lifelong understanding of the meaning of love, marriage, home, and family. This is the greatness of the Rebbe. He gives of himself and of his precious time to a simple, ordinary person with the same care as to the most important figures of our generation. In Judaism, marriage is called sanctification, the holiest of unions. Even though the Jewish people and every single Jew become a holy nation at the giving of the Torah, there are many aspects of Jewish life that are not specifically defined as holy, despite the fact that every detail of a Jew's life is meant to be sanctified by God. Marriage is specifically defined as a holy act. The formal declaration of the wedding ceremony is the groom's statement, "You are hereby sanctified to me." All of this comes to emphasize the lofty character of the relationship between a man and woman in Jewish life, a relationship that finds its true expressions in a marriage, quote, in accordance with the law of Moses in Israel. According to Judaism, man and woman are two halves of a single soul that was divided between two bodies upon its descent into this world. In the Zohar, an unmarried man or woman is referred to as half a person. Married life and bringing up a family create unity. When a husband and wife, in addition to being life partners, actively complement one another, each becomes a whole person. This is also the way to find a deeper meaning in life and a feeling of spirituality and holiness in general. Regarding a couple's special connection, our sages say, 40 days before the formation of the fetus, a heavenly voice goes out and proclaims that the daughter of so-and-so is meant for so-and-so. In addition, when the souls emerge, they emerge as male and female as one. Afterwards, upon descending into this world, they are separated, this one this way and the other one the other way. Then God reunites them. It is impossible for anyone else to unite them except for God alone. Who knows how to match couples so that the connection will be made properly? Again, it's a question, and we've had it before from the Zohar, which is the basic work of Jewish mysticism. Today, many young people are apprehensive about marriage and have difficulty deciding on the right partner. This is, of course, no easy decision, as it affects the rest of their lives. On the other hand, it is important to keep in mind that marriage is not a mathematical formula where every variable is exactly calculated, has to fit in advance. Experience has shown that the traditional Jewish approach to finding a match is the best one. In compliance with this approach, when looking for a suitable candidate for marriage partner, a person has to search for the vital components for building a true Jewish home. These are fear and awe of heaven and a mutually shared outlook on life based upon trust and faith in God, who guides each and every one of us with delicate care. All of the other criteria are less significant. If a person appropriately weighs the true significant factors when deciding who to marry, God's assistance will also enable the less significant elements to be successfully and positively fulfilled. In the special blessings that are recited under the nuptial canopy, Jewish marriage is described as, again quote, an everlasting edifice. This is not an empty poetic expression, but a recipe that includes meaningful ideas on the correct outlook on marriage. Before a person begins building a home, he first has to confirm that the foundations are solid, that they have to be strong enough to support the entire house and carry the later weight of the upper floors that will be added. It is to be expected that there will be divergent opinions concerning the building that will be constructed on these foundations. For example, how much to improve the external appearance, how to relate to the opinions of neighbors and friends, and whether or not to compromise on certain aesthetic considerations. However, there is no room for compromise when it comes to the sturdiness of the foundations. In order for the foundations to be strong and firm, they have to be made from well-tested materials that are durable to changes in temperature or any problem that can arise as a result of various and extreme conditions. All this is also true of the building of the Jewish home that begins with marriage, the significance of which is expressed by these words, an everlasting edifice. A good Jewish home, joyful and full of light, that also serves as a light to the non-Jews, has been tested over thousands of generations in a variety of places and under the most diverse conditions. Its firm foundations were always trustworthy, solid, and stable. Adherence to the Torah and its commandments in everyday life is what has protected the Jewish people as a whole as well as the individual family unit. This devotion is what carried us through every feasible crisis and turned us into an eternal people. For this reason, the Torah is called the Torah of life, implying that it leads to a good and happy life in this physical world. So too with the commandments about which it is said, and live by them. This is because they are the source of life and joy, not only in the next world, but also in this physical world. These are the epitome of the most stable foundations. This fact is particularly emphasized today, when all kinds of isms or different ideologies have brought about so much confusion and disturbances in the lives of the younger generation. In contrast, when young people at the beginning of their lives allow the Torah and its commandments to illuminate their paths, they are able to securely proceed with a deeply felt sensation of faith and joy. They can be assured of the success that comes with peace of mind, good health, and happiness, both in the material and in the spiritual. For the young couple attempting to build their home on the firm foundation of traditional Judaism, there are many ordeals with which to cope. Often they are faced with acquaintances or neighbors who make fun of their adherence to tradition. On this note, we must remember that factors which touch the essence of existence, which a person's entire future depends upon, leave no room for the consideration of words of ridicule, particularly since it is clear that this conduct will found the basis of family life for the next several decades. It helps to realize that the main stimulus for such mockery is usually rooted in the disappointment people find in their own ideologies. Their jealousy is aroused when they see another person standing strongly and calmly by his or her beliefs. In this context, we are able to understand the command issued to every Jewish man and woman in the opening of the Shulchan Aruch, the basic code of Jewish law. A person should not be embarrassed before those who laugh at him. This has to be stressed all the more so, since the Jewish people is the smallest among the nations. What is more, those who keep the commandments are not always in the majority amongst the Jews themselves. However, only the specific way of life based on Torah is the duty and merit of each and every one of us, and is what leads to a happy life. Many challenges confront a new couple. They may be faced with difficulty and even crisis. However, when they understand that these trials were actually meant to elevate them, they attain true perspective. In Hebrew, the word for trials is nisyonos, from the phrase nes harim, a banner to lift up. So therefore you lift yourself up. The purpose of these trials is to strengthen the foundations of the home. It is written in the Torah, in the form Deuteronomy, for God your Lord is testing you to know if you love God your Lord. Together with the hardships and problems, God provides us with the strength to overcome them. Thoughts of despair must be completely pushed away, and the troubling obstacles and hindrances related to his beneficial challenges, whose only purpose are to be surmounted. It takes some time for the new husband and wife to adjust one to the other. Even if there are undesirable friction at the beginning, it is important to note that this is very common amongst newlyweds. The situation improves with time, and the problems decrease until they completely disappear, particularly when a positive attitude is maintained on both sides. The best advice for those in their first years of marriage is not to take too much notice of this lack of compatibility, which is certainly only temporary. This is a well-tried way towards a good relationship and to acquire peace for many long and happy years. The less attention that is paid to the problems, the more quickly the relationship will become stable. This is particularly the case when each party emphasizes the positive and the good. When the couple contemplates about the above, they realize that their situation is not unusual or deviant, and certainly not horrible. The only thing necessary is appropriate behavior. This will bring about immediate improvement, and the situation will only get better and better, bestowing the couple with many happy years together. Now here's a few stories. Everybody loves a story. We read in the Talmud, in the Gemara, in the Talmud, that, quote, it was said of Rabbi Yehuda, the son of Rabbi Eloi, who was a very great rabbi, that at weddings he would twirl a sprig of myrtle as he danced before the bride, do some juggling. The Talmud goes on to say that when Rav Shmuel bar Rav Yitzchak danced, he would juggle 3 twigs of myrtle. Said Rab Zera, Rab Shmuel's disciple, this venerable sage is embarrassing us by making light of the respect due to Torah scholars through his undignified behavior. Here you have a venerable rabbi, and he's, what are you, a clown? Are you juggling? You can only imagine what that is. When Rav Shmuel bar Yitzchak passed away, though, a pillar of fire appeared, separating him from all those who were near him. Subsequently, Rab Zera retracted his previous remark and said, the venerable sage has been well served by the sprig of myrtle with which he used to dance, although he seemingly acted with folly. So it seemed like that was a very high level of dancing and a little bit goofy at being a juggler at the wedding. But in any case, instead of being despised for it, he was actually praised for it. And Hasidic teachings that explain that this kind of folly transcends regular understanding, thus representing a far superior mode of conduct. Rabbi Shmuel attained this extremely lofty level because of his custom of gladdening the heart of the bride and bridegroom. The following quotation from the Talmud throws light on the irrational, meaning super-rational conduct of the above-named sage at weddings. If a man in Hebrew is called Ish, and a woman is called Isha, are found worthy, the divine presence abides between them. For Ish is composed of fire. It's a play on words. Aish, if you can understand it. Aish is fire. Ish is man, and the letter Yud with a extra letter in there. Isha is composed of fire. Isha, Aish. Aish in Hebrew, and the letter Hey. So what it means, when a man and woman are found worthy, meaning when they approach marriage in a godly way, these letters combine to spell the name of God. The divine presence dwells in their midst. Moreover, the divine presence then becomes manifested in the kind of marriage that is called an everlasting edifice. As marriage evokes such great spiritual power, the joy of the sages at weddings would go beyond the conventional bounds of propriety. Indeed, in the wake of the dancing of Rav Shmuel bar Rav Yitzchak, he was granted a sublime revelation of divine favor. A pillar of fire appeared, separating him from all those who were near him, a true revelation of divine light. So again, a marriage ceremony, okay, you like me, I like you, and we get married and go bowling together. But this is very important that really in Judaism, a marriage is a very holy idea, like we say, sanctification. Now this is based on the journal of the Rebbe's mother, Rabbi Simchana Schneerson. The following story happened to USSR, in Soviet Russia, in 1935, a time when Soviet oppression was at its peak. And the KGB, the secret police, was tracking all Jewish activity was defined as counter-revolutionary and anti-government. One night at 11 p.m., a knock was heard on the door of Rabbi Levi Yitzchak Schneerson, which was her husband, the chief rabbi of the city of the Pronestag. An older woman entered the apartment. 11 o'clock at night. She looked around nervously to make sure that there was no one there besides the rabbi and his family. "Rabbi," she whispered, "I have come from a distant city that I cannot identify by name. In another hour at midnight, my daughter and son-in-law will be here too. They are both serving in high-level government positions. Coming here is fraught with danger for them. It was only after I begged and pleaded with them to go to a rabbi who would arrange a proper Jewish wedding for them that they promised me they would. But they set the condition that the wedding ceremony would take place in your home, honored rabbi, and nowhere else. I came in advance to give you time to prepare for their arrival." At exactly midnight, the couple arrived. They were immediately brought into a side room so that no one would see them. The rabbi began to prepare for the marriage ceremony. First, he needed to get a minyan, a quorum of 10 adult Jewish men. By now it was after midnight. The streets were empty, deserted. Not a living creature could be seen. Where would it be possible to get another 8, aside for the rabbi and groom, to complete a minyan at this hour? The marriage needed to take place that night at any cost. A delay could not be afforded. It was necessary to get 8 kosher Jews, people that could be relied upon to keep a secret and not tell anyone what they had seen. Otherwise, the lives of the rabbi, the young couple, and everyone present would be in danger. Within a half an hour, the room held 9 men. Only one was missing. A 10th man was for the minyan. What did the rabbi do? In Rabbi Levi Yitzchak's apartment building, a young Jew had been assigned by the government to serve as head of the housing committee. It was his responsibility to spy and keep careful tabs on any irregular movements in the home of the rabbi and verify that no religious ceremonies were taking place. It was to him that the rabbi sent a messenger asking him to come. When he arrived, Rabbi Levi Yitzchak told him that he wanted him to serve as the 10th man of a minyan so that he can conduct a Jewish wedding for the young Jewish couple that was getting married that night. "Me?" He jumped back as if bitten by a snake. "Yes, you." The young man rushed to the windows, closed all the shutters. Then he sat down quietly and alertly watched the unfolding events. The rabbi's wife brought a big tablecloth to serve as the chuppah, the canopy, and 4 of those present, like living posts, held up its 4 corners. When the ketubah, the marriage contract, was drawn up, the bride and groom were summoned from their hiding place in the other room. The bride's face was veiled, and the groom tried to cover his face too, so he wouldn't be recognized. The ceremony began. No candles were lit due to the bride and groom's fear of discovery. 7 circles were conducted around the groom as is customary. The rabbi arranged the marriage and recited the 7 blessings. The groom put the ring on the bride's finger and said, "Behold, you are betrothed to me," and the ceremony was complete. It was now 1:30 a.m. The bride and groom hurried to vacate the premises, as did all the other participants, except for 2. These were people who held Communist Party cards. They took their cards out of their pockets, approached Rabbi Levi Yitzchak, and said emotionally, "And as of now, Rabbi, we are with you, and we do not want to part from this. All of this," pointing to the card, "is worth nothing to us when we are with you, honored Rabbi." So again, you can see how important Jewish sanctity is in the Jewish marriage. Let's see, I have a smaller story here. The best advice the rabbi ever gave. In the summer of 2004, Andrew and Sharon finally became engaged and asked me, their rabbi, if I will do their wedding ceremony on December 5th, 2004. I was so happy for them, and I answered, "Of course. I would be honored to officiate as long as you meet the 4 basic requirements of the Jewish wedding. The requirements are that the bride and groom are both Jewish, the bride will immerse in the mikveh, the ritualarium, prior to the wedding, the food will be kosher, neither are still married to another person. If so, they must obtain a get, a Jewish bill of divorce." Andrew and Sharon both smiled. They were delighted because there was nothing standing in their way. The wedding was set as planned until, during a private conversation, Sharon confided in me that she had once been married to a Jewish guy whom she referred to as the mistake. But she was only married to him for 6 hours, and the courts gave her an annulment immediately due to the terrible actions of the mistake. With Sharon's revelation, I could feel knots forming in my stomach. How do I tell her the last thing on earth she wants to hear? I began by saying, please understand that what I'm going to tell you may surprise you, but you still need a divorce. Being married for 6 hours or for 6 years is still considered being married, I explained. But the courts annulled my marriage, Sharon told me. Rabbi, please understand it was a mistake. Sharon, who never ever wanted to revisit her past, let alone have contact with the mistake, couldn't believe what I had told her. I continued by adding, I want to perform your wedding, but please understand that I can't do it until you obtain a divorce. Now Sharon looked at me in all seriousness. Rabbi, what if I can't find the mistake? Am I doomed forever? I calmed Sharon down and told her we should proceed one step at a time. I will be there for you. Let's contact the Rabbinical Court in Los Angeles, and they will help us get through this dilemma, I reassured her. I explained to both Sharon and Andrew that nothing in life happens by chance. Everything is preordained by God. In fact, that you need a get today shows that something important happened in Sharon's life, even if it lasted only for 6 hours. Sharon would not allow her wedding to be stopped due to her mistake. She continued planning her wedding and her honeymoon, sure that things would work out. After spending a few weeks with the Rabbinical Court in Los Angeles, Sharon finally was free from the mistake. But when they told her, now that you have your get, you can marry, but not before 92 days from today. Within seconds, Sharon and Andrew were on the phone with me. Are they crazy? Is this true? Will you not do our wedding on December 5th? They asked me near hysterical. I calmly explained to them the explanation behind the Jewish law and tried to reason with them. But they weren't able to hear what I was saying. They were focused on their wedding plans, their honeymoon, their soulmate. For days they grappled with the idea of having to wait until January 2005 to get married. After a few days, Andrew and Sharon called me and said, we want to do our wedding right in God's eyes. So they began replanning their wedding for the end of January. But still in the back of their minds, they could not understand what would be God's divine purpose. What possible good could come out of delaying their wedding? That is not until December 26th. You see, the perfect honeymoon that Andrew and Sharon were planning would have had them at the famous Kafu Atoll Maldives Hotel, I don't know where that is, on Lake Fanshui Island, on December 26th. The hotel room that they had booked and then rescheduled for a later date was swept up by a tsunami. Sharon and Andrew celebrated their miracle on Shabbos, January 1st, with a special kiddush after services in our Chabad house. At that kiddush, the ceremony after the services, Andrew said, for the best advice the rabbi ever gave us was follow the rules of God's Torah. It will be a blessing in the end for both of you. May God bless Andrew and Sharon with years of happiness, health together, and long life. Hope everybody also has a happy and healthy marriage and a long life of bliss together. Thank you very much.